Well, joining us now is Rick Berman. He's president of the PR firm Berman and Company and founder of a bewildering number of pro-business nonprofit organizations. Mr. Berman, I commend you for wanting to come on the show, knowing exactly what this conversation was going to be like. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for letting me come on.
All right, so tell me what I just said there that is not true. I want to give you the chance to correct the record first.
Well, first of all, I don't know if I have enough time to do that.
Okay.
But I brought some notes because I listened to some of your commentary on previous nights.
Well, I don't want to say anything that's factually untrue, so tell me if I've got something wrong.
I don't know that you say things that are factually untrue as much as with a healthy dose of sarcasm and with taking things out of context, you make them seem a lot worse than they are. Let's go to trans fat.
Okay.
Everybody used to use saturated fat. Then there was a group that is commonly called the Food Police, called the Center for Science and the Public Interest.
So you call them the Food Police.
Well,
nobody else commonly calls them that.
Well, actually, more and more people are starting to call them that.
Because you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you. But they said saturated fats are terrible. We need to go to trans fat. And they counseled the industry, and they counseled the government, and they counseled the media that we needed to move to trans fat. Over time, they decided, no, trans fats are bad. We have to go back to either saturated fats or some other fat. Now, the point is that trans fats are not particularly bad compared to saturated fats or vice versa. And trans fats, most people who get connected to trans fat get connected to it by putting margarine on their bread. That's what trans fats are. And when I see people say that trans fats, and we've seen legislators say trans fats are like lead in paint with kids eating lead chips. We've seen legislators say that they're just like rat poison. I put out a website and I say, listen, there needs to be some balance in this conversation. Okay. Trans fats may not be good for you. You may not, you shouldn't eat them in great amounts, but they are not rat poison.
When you put out that website, though, what I want to know is, in order to assess the credibility of what you're saying, and when I see the ads that you're doing, the look at the website, what I want to know is, are manufacturers of foods that contain trans fats paying you to say it?
I know where you're going. Listen, what you were saying before about nonprofits not disclosing their donors is something that is well known to people on the left, on the far left, and on the right. All through politics, people have nonprofits that are advocacy nonprofits, and they all are refusing to submit donor lists because people don't want to have their right to free speech curtailed by people coming after them. You know, the original case that went to the Supreme Court...
Wait, before you do that, though, hold on. Like, before we talk about the Supreme Court, you just, without me interrupting you, like I did just now, you just gave this sort of soliloquy on why trans fats aren't so bad. In order for my viewers to know whether or not that was a paid-for testimonial by people who have a vested financial interest in trans fats being purchased and consumed by a lot of Americans, I want to know if somebody who makes trans fats or profits from them paid you to say it.
Go on the website and look at the science. What I always
are you saying that you won't tell me?
Yes, of course, and I am just like all the groups on the left who won't tell you either. In fact, you put up one website about Acorn, Rotten Acorn. The only thing wrong with that website homepage is that it's now been changed as of tonight because you had Melanie Sloan on, Melanie Sloan from Crew, and she has been attacking me over the years for one thing or another. And so tonight I put up, if you go to RottenAcorn.com, you will see an expose of Melanie Sloan in Crew not wanting to disclose her donors. This is something on the right and the left.
I want it, but and you can, if you're going to attack Melanie Sloan for not disclosing her donors, and I know that activistcash.com is another one of your vehicles by which you attack groups on the left and try to expose who their donors are. Why do you feel justified in doing that when you won't say who yours are?
If I get money from NBC and NBC says, I don't want my name disclosed, it's not up to me to disclose it.
Yeah, but why do you expect anybody to believe you on matters of science and research if we don't know if you are being paid to say it by people who have a vested interest, literally a financial interest, in you being persuasive? Don't you think that's kind of evil? Here's
why. Because I can't make a persuasive case just because it's my opinion. And if you go to those websites, there's science on there. When you go to the website about mercury facts or fish scam, what you will see is that the Harvard School of Public Health says that the risks of mercury from eating fish are far more outweighed than the benefits of eating fish. So if I've got Harvard saying it, I don't have to tell you who gave me any money to publicize their point of view.
All right, this is going to be more fun after the commercial. Will you stick around? Or you can leave now if you want, but I'd love for you to stick around.
I want to stay the whole show if I can.
All right, Rick Berman, thank you very much for being a great sport to being here. We'll be right back after this. We're back with Rick Berman. He is president of the PR firm Berman and Company, as well as the founder of a great number of pro-business nonprofit organizations. Mr. Berman, thanks for sticking with us.
Glad to be here.
All right, you have received a lot of attention over the years for your efforts. CBS memorably christened you Dr. Evil, a term that you seem to really relish. And I know that you said in an interview about 10 years ago in a trade magazine, you said that your strategy is to, quote, shoot the messenger. We've got to attack their credibility as spokespersons.
Right.
Was that your intent? Was that the strategy behind RottenAcorn.com, to go after them as the messengers for raising the minimum wage and the other kinds of things they worked on?
You know, most of the people that I go after, and Acorn is certainly in the crosshairs on this, are people who are hypocrites, people who say one thing and do another, people who are duplicitous. When I first found out about Acorn, it was because I had had a long history of working on the minimum wage. And
Against raising the minimum wage.
Against raising the minimum wage, which is a position that's consistent all the time. Whenever they do these surveys, 75 to 80% of economists in this country say that raising the minimum wage is no longer a good anti-poverty measure. There are all sorts of studies for that. If you want to know more about it, you go to minimumwage.com, which is run by Rick Berman.
Okay. And the idea that raising the minimum wage hurts poor people is making people laugh all around the country.
Well, let them laugh, but the point is that economists who have no dog in the fight say this because when you see that the average income, the average family income of a minimum wage worker today is approximately $50,000.
You know, but that's
But Rachel, let me finish about Acorn, okay? It's important. The reason I got involved with Acorn is that I saw that Acorn had filed a brief in the California Court of Appeals saying that they wanted to pay their own employees less than the minimum wage. They wanted to be exempted from the minimum wage. And one of their arguments was that they wouldn't be able to hire as many workers as if they raised the minimum wage on them. And they said, and this was really incredible, they said that if they could pay their workers less than the minimum wage, they would be poor and they would be better able to identify with their poor clients. Now, the judge threw the case out, said that this was the most hypocritical thing he had ever seen. And this was an appellate court brief. This was not some local person.
Who funded your website again, RottenAcorn.com? Who gave you the money for that?
I did it.
You did it yourself, personally?
Yeah, I start a lot of these myself because I believe in them. And then I go to people and I say, listen, this is what I'm doing. If your beliefs are consistent with mine, will you help me get this thing out?
And so
it doesn't cost anything to put a website up.
Right, but on the Acorn, so nobody ever supported that? That was out of the goodness of your heart?
Yeah.
The problem with that is that I can't prove it one way or another because you don't have to disclose it. And so I have to take your word on that, and I will. There's no reason not to. But in general, your strategy is not to say, I, Rick Berman, am being paid to tell you that the efforts to stop you from eating fish or stop eating trans fats or stop smoking cigarettes, whatever they are, I'm being paid to tell you that these things are a bad idea.
I don't do things that I don't believe.
Okay, but you are being paid to say them as well by people who have a vested interest in what you are arguing, and you don't argue. You don't argue from the truth of it, the fact that you're being paid for it. You argue that the people who advocate against cigarette smoking, the people who advocate for raising the minimum wage, you advocate that they're bad people and can't be trusted. You're against Mothers Against Drunk Driving. You're against PETA. You're against Acorn.
Wrong. Listen,
you're shooting the messenger. You said it's your own strategy.
The woman who started Mothers Against Drunk Driving came to work for me because she believed that the Maddow organization had been hijacked.
She left in a bad way.
She left because she had been hounded for doing it. That's why. But the point is that she agreed with me, and there are lots of people, traffic safety people, who agree that MAD used to be against drunk driving. I was the only consultant to MAD, the only corporate consultant to MAD. I was trying to do something about drunk driving. The organization was consistent with our views, but then they went about trying to go after any drinking and driving. So now they're trying to put breathalyzers in all cars as original equipment.
Restaurants and bars and other industries that sell alcohol and are worried about it. They have an interest in it, and they're paying you to say it. If you admitted that,
but of course,
nobody would call you Dr. Evil anymore. They'd just call you a PR guy. The reason that you're on the show is because you don't disclose who's paying you to say the things that you're saying.
Well, then you can't have anybody on your show from the left or the right who is connected to these nonprofit organizations because they won't tell you who's funding them.
And you think that's wrong?
I think that they're entitled to do that. They're entitled to keep their donors quiet. I think that that's up to them.
Rick Berman, president of Berman and Company, my sincere thanks for coming on tonight. I look forward to you taking down the website, attacking crew for not disclosing their donors, because you've had your change of heart right here on set with me.
Hardly. Hardly.
Doesn't matter what you think. It's what works for your business. I understand. I hope that you'll come back. I hope you felt you were treated fairly.
I was, and I would look forward to coming back.
Thank you.